Hello, I'm Angela and welcome to Crafting with Angela. Today we are going to make a card using the emboss resist technique. I have a card base here. This card base is 4 7/8 by 6 7/8, so it's basically a 5 by 7 card, but it's slightly smaller, just the pack I got them in. It's pre-made. I have then cut down two pieces of card. The first piece is 4.5 by 6.5, and the second piece is 4.25 by 6.25. They're both in white cardstock. I am going to use this stamp set, so it's For the Love of Stamps by Hunky Dory, and it's Spread Your Wings. I have a range of butterflies here, and I am also going to use a couple of the sentiments on this as well. Because that, I also will need a acrylic block to put the stamps on. I need embossing powder, so I have detailed white embossing powder. I have my homemade embossing buddy. This is just a piece of cloth which has some cornstarch in it tied with a ribbon. And I'm also going to be using my Versamark ink pad. And then for the ink blending background, I'm going to be using three colours: Salty Ocean, Picked Raspberry, and Squeezed Lemonade in Distress Oxides. And I am going to be using these blending brushes to go with them. So there's a blending brush for each of the colour combinations. Okay, so we will be starting with the smaller of the two mats. So this is the one that's 4.25 by 6.25 inches. It's just plain white cardstock. I also have a piece of fun foam here, and that's just because I really like to use the fun foam to make sure I get a good impression with my stamps. So before I start, I'm just going to use my homemade embossing buddy to push it over this and make sure that the embossing powder only sticks to the bits. I'm going to be using Versamark embossing ink, and then let's just go into the stamps. So what I'm looking for on this stamp set are the butterflies that are more the outlines. That one obviously wasn't well cleaned for it, so there we have three of the butterflies that are more of the shadows, not the whole solids. But I will take a couple of these. I'll take that small one and then that one that's on the side as well. I'm just going to take those two to help fill in some space. I'm going to take the stamps and fill the space with them, starting with the biggest stamp. Using Versamark ink, it can be difficult to see the image on camera, but in real life you can make out where the previous images have been stamped. Sometimes you do get an overlap of images, but that's not a major issue. I start with the largest stamp and work my way down, and then use the smaller stamps to fill in the space. Once that's completed, I am going to swap over my foam mat for a sheet of copier paper, and I am going to put on some embossing powder. This embossing powder is detailed white, but any white embossing powder you have would work just as well. Once you have the embossing powder on, I give it a light tap to get rid of any excess, and then I'm going to come in with my heat tool and set the embossing powder. With the heat tool, you want to have it on for a couple of seconds before you bring it to the paper. When I use the heat tool, I always start on the back of the paper just to try and avoid any warping from the heat. Then I'll move over to the front and move the heat tool around to make sure I'm not keeping it in one spot too long to burn the paper. When the embossing powder is set, it will turn shiny. That's always a good way to check if it's set. If you see any dull areas, that means it hasn't yet set, and you should come back in with your heat tool to get it to set properly. So now we're going to come in and we're going to do the ink blending background. Okay, like I said, I'm going to use these three colours, so Salty Ocean, Picked Raspberry and Squeezed Lemonade. I'm just going to do them diagonally from the corners. I always like when I am doing ink blending, I don't like to touch the surface itself, just because I think it leaves marks, fingerprints, and you can end up with marks on it. So I'm just going to come in, load my brush up, and from this corner I am just going to come up with the Squeezed Lemonade. Using three colours, but we're going to end up with a 5-colour blend by the time we go through everything. It's in the right order, so we start with Squeezed Lemonade. We're going to come in with Salty Ocean. Take it back into the Squeezed Lemonade to get the colour blend. I'm going to go back with the Squeezed Lemonade and just go over that colour blend to get a nice smooth green there. I like working with the two colours until you get a blend that you're happy with. I don't want any harsh lines in there, so just working on the two helps get that smooth. Okay. Then I'm going to come in with the Picked Raspberry. Again, going back into that blue colour to make sure we get a nice purple blend between the two. I'm going to repeat this pattern. I'm going through Salty Ocean, then Squeezed Lemonade for the remainder of the card. So I've just tidied the desk up a bit, and now I'm going to come in a piece of tissue, again holding this, just going to dry tissue, and we're just going to come in over the top. If you find it's not easily coming off, you can put a small piece of water, but do remember that we don't want this overly wet, because stress oxides are water reactive, and the more you play with them, the more you use, the more you want to impact the background. So that's not giving me a nice enough. Taking enough of that off, so I'm just going to come in then with the. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take the card base. So I'm going to stick this on top of this there, and all of a sudden you can see now why that we chose that white layer. So that white layer just does really help the butterflies to stick out. So if I turn this over, I'm just going to come in with my ATG and put a couple of strips of tape down here. Okay, ATGs I know are expensive, not everybody has them. If you don't have an ATG, you can use double-sided tape, you can use wet glue, you could use anything you have that you would normally use to stick cards down. So I know people really like wet glue, some people really like the double-sided tape. ATG is just another way of doing the double-sided tape. The difference is that it gives you, you don't have to peel back and off. Okay, so there we go. That is. Oh, the one thing I didn't do that I meant to do was I meant to come in with a drop of water on this. So this background, the stress oxides are great, but they're even better because they're water reactive. And if you come in with some water splashes and splinters here, you're just going to give a bit of extra texture to the background. So I'm just doing that here. You can see some of them coming up already. And I'm trying to get them through all of the different colours. And if you don't think you're getting enough in, come back in on the colours you specifically want them to come up on. There has to be big splashes, just enough to give a bit of texture into it. And the quicker you lift it off, the less colour it becomes. So that's that. Now, I am going to. Okay, so I'm going to assemble the card now. So we have the card base and the front. I'm just going to take my ATG, turn the card front over, and put a couple of rows of tape down. Okay. Come in, hold it on the edges to try and center it. This is easier to do in real life. When you're on the camera, you're trying to see what it looks like on the camera before you press it, and then press it down. So hopefully that's relatively centered, it looks it. And then I have this sentiment. I have some foam dots. I'm just trying to find where they are. I just have foam tape. This is quite a big sentiment, or a relatively big sentiment. I have these scissors, they're very messy. They are. This is I only use for anything that's gluey, so I'm just going to put a piece of foam tape down here and cut it to size. I'll do the same underneath it. So 2 pieces of foam tape comes quite well there. Just want to go back in and trim off that extra piece that's sticking over the edge. over a bit. I didn't mean to, but we kind of went over the front there, so that's it now. Okay, so take the backing off this.